All right, we're being joined by Ambassador Anil Trigunayat. He's a distinguished fellow, Vivekananda International Foundation. Ambassador Trigunayat has also served as Director General and Joint Secretary for the Gulf and Hajj divisions in the Ministry of External Affairs in New Delhi. He is now joining us live from New Delhi. Ambassador, welcome to the show. There is high speculation that terror groups are regrouping or even re-emerging across the globe. Several countries have been considered highly vulnerable. Does India fit that class? And could ISIS have its radar on India?
Good evening, Eric, for having me on your show. Yes, terrorism is a global threat, and it requires a global solidarity and the fight. Unfortunately, that is what has been missing. The countries have been following very discriminatory policies, despite suffering occasionally from these. Good terrorist, bad terrorist, my terrorist versus your terrorist, these things are continuing, and that is why I think that terrorism has survived. Now, ISIS is very much, it was decimated to a great extent, but its ideology and many of its actors, especially the foreign fighters, they spread around in many countries. More importantly, with the winning of Taliban in Afghanistan, where USA abdicated its responsibility and went out with a vacuum, leaving it to Taliban, obviously they found a fertile place. That is a very major problem for India also, because anything that happens in Afghanistan is nearly on our borders, and with the kind of relationship that we have with Pakistan, which has its own terror factories against India, obviously it makes a very major challenge for us. So India is on the radar, and it is not from now. We have heard from 2014, when first time we heard about the presence of ISIS and also Al-Qaeda and other operatives with various sleeper cells here.
Okay.
But India has been quite successful in containing for two reasons, in my view. One is that if you were to see that out of the 100 countries which sent, or from where a lot of fighters went to fight for the ISIS and its ideology at the time, Indian numbers, despite India being the third largest Muslim nation, was very small, minuscule number. But that is not something we can sit happily on this, because this can always increase radicalization. Those who are returning from outside, they can create this. There are these social media platforms and various campaigns that are run by these groups that can generate more and more people. So there is a very comprehensive strategy required. While the NIA has been, and we have been able to see a little less decline in India
Ambassador,
as far as the
let me interject you.
are concerned.
Let me interject you, because we are limited on time and I want us to have a conclusive conversation. The new warfare by terror groups is to infiltrate countries' intelligence agencies once they plan an attack, so that when they strike, some of these agencies are caught unawares. Does India have the capabilities to avoid such a breach?
Well, I think that so far we have done remarkably well. I mean, whatever statistics is in there in the public domain, we understand that a very large number of such groups have been stopped from perpetrating any acts. And the recent arrest of this Haris Faruqi, who was supposed to be the ISIS chief in Assam, is also an indicator of that, because they were planning many attempts and many attacks there. And again, this young student from IIT, I mean, that is also a worrying sign. Now, infiltrating into the agencies, I don't think is that much easier in India. But at the same time, we cannot be just, oblivious to the fact that these can happen. At the same time, we must also be very careful that the technology today is being used rather much better by ISIS and other organizations for radicalization and recruitment. And that's where I think we will need to plug it in order to fight more conclusively on the terror organizations.
Finally, Ambassador, what lessons do you think India has learned from especially the Mumbai terror attack? And what lessons do you think the world should learn from the Moscow attack?
Well, I think that the biggest lesson is that you cannot discount anything. The first thing is, any information that you receive, it must be acted upon immediately. In Russia's case, we have seen it that Americans have been telling about this something. Now, of course, there is a bit fight. There's a trust deficit. We had provided similar information about the ISIS attacks in Sri Lanka, if you remember, a few years ago, but that was not acted upon. So any intelligence and the intelligence agencies around the world need to work on it, howsoever uh, light the information is or not so credible, but we need to not discount that. That's very important in order to contain it. Secondly, it has to be, as I said, a comprehensive fight. You need to have work with the clergy, you have to work with the influencers, you have to look at the social media, you have to try to use the youth, and so that there's no radicalization of these people and employment and various other factors that need to be addressed in order to contain it at this stage.
Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, thank you very much for all your insights and for talking to WION World is One today.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.